Well, hello everybody and welcome to today's broadcast. It is December 26th, 2024 from all of us here at 507 Patriot MN and Operation Get Involved Minnesota, hoping that you and yours had a truly blessed Christmas. And yes, in this household studio, we still say Merry Christmas. And we're not one bit ashamed about it. We've got late breaking news from Steele County, Minnesota, Ellendale, Minnesota to be exact, in relation to the David versus Goliath lawsuit here of Jaguar Communications LLC, also known as MetroNet, an internet service provider, and David in the story to David and Goliath. David is truthfully Daniel Petsinger, a rural Ellendale, Minnesota businessman and property owner. On Monday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, Steele County District Court Judge Karen Duncan, and we're going to get into a lot more about her in the future broadcasts. Karen Duncan, finally, after 90 days sitting on the bench, actually 91 days, sitting on the bench on a summary judgment motion from plaintiff Jaguar Communications, made her ruling in favor of David, in favor of Daniel Petsinger, in fact, ruling against the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment, dismissing all of Jaguar or MetroNet's claims against Daniel Petsinger. That's right, a self-represented litigant went against Jaguar and MetroNet with their powerhouse attorney, Moss and Barnett, out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, with Taylor Stanzer swinging the bat for the plaintiff and coming up empty, strike three. We'll get to the story. And it's a long story, so we're going to try and keep it short. Basically, a developer of undeveloped residential land in Ellendale failed to pay taxes. The state of Minnesota, the property was bid into and sold to the state of Minnesota back in 2008. And after it was bid in and sold to the state of Minnesota, the developer, Doug Klemmenson of DJ Gravel LLC, negotiated some form of an easement, a private easement, with Jaguar, and actually supposedly accepted money for that. Gee, that's not fraud, is it? Well, fast forward to 2017 when the state of Minnesota sold that same property to Daniel Petsinger and his wife, and Daniel instantly called Jaguar Communications and communicated with their in-house legal counsel saying, hey, get off my property. The easement was extinguished by tax forfeiture laws and statutes and case law, and he cited it to Jaguar, and they completely ignored him into 2018. Then in 2024, in violation of several agreements, not just their easement agreement, but also in violation of their conditional use permit with the city of Ellendale, the violation of the resolution issued in relation to the conditional use permit, and so much more, Jaguar put up a huge generator on the outside of the building. They poured a concrete foundation, dug into the ground, big old heavy-duty bolts, and put in a generator that towers over the top of the rooftop of the building on the property. When Petsinger served them an order to cease and desist and a no trespass warning, Jaguar filed lawsuit. And that has been going on since January or February of 2024. Now, Petsinger, a self-represented litigant, and I know I keep saying that. This is very important, folks. I'll just backtrack for a little bit. I have watched or attended every single court hearing in this case, and I have pored over over 160 docketed documents in this case. It's a big case. And it should never have been, because Dan Petsinger always held true to his claim that the tax foreclosure extinguished the reported easement, even though the easement was fraudulently drafted anyway. And he ended up being right. But in his search for attorneys, what he found is that nobody wanted to take the case. I don't know if it's nobody wanted to take on Jaguar, or nobody wanted to fight Steele County, or nobody wanted to fight some municipalities that have some liability in here and are very likely going to be charged with malfeasance and misfeasance. But anyway, Dan Petsinger decided, you know what, heck with it. If bar attorneys are an officer for the court and their duty and obligation is to the court and not to you, which is the truth, I would do the same thing as Dan Petsinger. I'd say, hey, I'm taking this case on myself. I'm representing myself sui juris, just like I did in a case, and was also victorious. Now I'll tell you something. It doesn't mean that he is a sovereign citizen. In fact, he's the farthest from it. But we have to address that, because that's how the courts look at it. Oh, you're claiming sovereign citizen. First off, sovereign citizen is an oxymoron. You can't be sovereign and be a citizen. The two don't match. And if you really dig into the meaning of a sovereign citizen, the only ones that I think really pretend like they're sovereign citizens are the judges, the attorneys, the prosecutors, and in many cases, the police officers, because they think they are above the law. All right, let's get back to it. So Dan and his wife buy this property from the state of Minnesota in 2017. They instantly tell Jaguar, hey, the easement is extinguished, you got to go. And Jaguar communicates for a couple of months, and then in 2018, with no explanation or anything, just stops communicating. Petsinger spends the better part of a year shopping this story around to attorneys and getting bids and quotes from a very few that would even take it on, and they were astronomical. And here's the thing, they would not pursue the things that Dan Petsinger knew to be right. They wouldn't quote certain statutes, they wouldn't research the law, they wouldn't look at case law that supported his case. They wanted to do it their way or the highway, and Dan Petsinger told them, take the highway. He'd handle it on his own. So he serves a no trespass order, he serves a cease and desist, Jaguar files a lawsuit. Now, months and months and months on end, he has articulated very well the claims, the assertive defenses, the defenses, and the counterclaims. And he has been beaten and beat down in many, many ways for several months. And suddenly, Jaguar's attorney, and she's pulled quite a few fast ones. There'll be some episodes coming on that and some repercussions that are going against her that we'll discuss in the future. But their attorney filed for a summary judgment, and at the same time, Dan Petsinger filed for summary judgment. The court only heard the summary judgment on behalf of the plaintiff, Jaguar Communications, and they're supposed to rule within 90 days. Well, 90 days came and went, and the judge hadn't ruled. So at 90 days, Dan Petsinger filed for a complete motion to dismiss all of Jaguar or MetroNet's claims based on new relevant evidence and information that had been gathered since the mid-September filing for summary judgment. And then a day later, after the 90 days that the judge has by civil court procedure rules to make a ruling, after that, and after Dan Petsinger files a motion for dismissal completely, suddenly there's an order from the judge, a day late, and it's okay, ruling that all of Jaguar and MetroNet's complaints against Dan Petsinger are null and void. They are dismissed with prejudice. They cannot be refiled. Now that brings up a lot more in the stories that you've been reading in the Steele County Times and the New Richland Star-Eagle. It's been front page news for several months about the contentious relationship between the city of Ellendale and Dan Petsinger on the same parcel and same property for other but related incidents. And I'll tell you what, malfeasance and misfeasance and dereliction of duties with elected servants and worse are coming to light. And Dan Petsinger's not done. And the city knows it. The city of Ellendale tried to embarrass Dan Petsinger, I believe it's back in October, during a city council meeting where right before he was supposed to testify, they had the sheriff come in and serve him papers for their lawsuit of, $50 for, not mowing the hay that he has on the property? Another whole case, another whole story. But here's what happened. Dan Petsinger went to the courthouse, again, self-represented, to answer the complaint that the city of Ellendale filed, only to find out the city of Ellendale served a complaint. In their complaint, they demanded that Dan Petsinger answer it, and he has to within 21 days according to the rules of civil procedure and rules of general practice, or he could lose by default. So he answers it, and he goes to file his answer with the court system, and they're like, we don't have this court case. The city of Ellendale never filed their lawsuit against Dan Petsinger. But he was adamant. He knew his rights. He knew what the city was trying to do. He knew what the courthouse was trying to support. When they said, well, you can't file, there's no court case. City never filed. You can't file an answer. Dan held his ground. He showed the county courthouse administration where they were obligated, where they had to accept his filing. And they did. So here's an answer to a complaint, but a complaint that's still yet today, 12/26, hasn't been filed. So what did he do? He countersued in excess of $1.5 million for the malfeasance and misfeasance, for the harassment, for the discrimination and everything else going on by the city of Ellendale that piggybacks to this Jaguar case. Oh, stay tuned, folks. There's much more come. And there's much more fun in this one. But I wanted to tell you, from 507 Patriot MN and from Operation Get Involved Minnesota, I wanted to tell you Merry Christmas. I want to congratulate self-represented litigant Daniel Petsinger from Ellendale. Sir, you are to be commended. He's a military wartime veteran who pays attention to detail to the nth degree, much to the chagrin of the city of Ellendale and others. But I'll tell you what, he stuck to his guns. He didn't cow down to the pressure or the harassment or the discrimination. And now he's victorious. David beats Goliath. Daniel Petsinger beats Jaguar and MetroNet. More to come, more to follow. Stay tuned, and be sure to like, comment, and share.